Hello, everyone. I hope that you were able to join in today and are excited to talk about meaningful stand ups. This is my first live. As many of you know, I am not a big fan of video, especially of myself. But I promised you about a month and a half ago that I would do a live based on your poll results. So, first, you voted for your number one topic being discussion of meaningful stand ups. And secondly, you told me you didn't want to hear about it via a blog post, that you wanted to hear about it via a live. So here I am, live. Seems a bit like talking to myself, but I am doing it nonetheless. So, meaningful stand ups. Why did this get picked as the top topic? I suspect it's because when you have had to attend stand ups, the words boring, pointless, droning on, repetitive, useless, doesn't add value, that all of those words have come to mind when you think of a stand up. And that you think of it as that is 15 minutes or heaven forbid 30, 45, or an hour of time that you're never going to get back. Well, that is not the point of a stand up. And at that point, I think we have to say that our stand up has turned into a status call. And we might as well send that in an email because that's about as much value as it adds to the group. So, what do we do to correct this? For those of you who have been to any flavor of Agile training where they talk about the daily stand up being a critical part of the process, if you didn't explore beyond that, then the process starts to seem a bit silly. So in those classes, they teach you that the formula for a stand-up is for each person to go around the room and state what they did yesterday, what they're doing today, and where they have impediments. So you can see after a while when a team works together for a long amount of time that this can get really boring because people just log in and they're like, oh, yesterday I did a blah, 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 and today I'm doing a blah, 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 and no, nothing wrong, I'm fine. And then we go on to the next person. And that's really what it starts to sound like. It really starts to sound like blah, 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 and yesterday, blah, blah, blah. And we tune out. Well, what value does that stand up have to anybody if you don't stand behind the message that you're giving and the people who are listening have no reason to engage with you? Then you're right. There is absolutely no point to have that meeting, and it isn't providing value. So here are a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, stand up does not equal status meeting. If that's where your thinking is, the first thing you need to do is change that thinking, and then you will start to change how that meeting takes place. Even if you are not using one of the Agile frameworks like Scrum, that meeting should be no more than 15 minutes. I've heard from clients in the past that it takes 45 minutes and then somebody's always monopolizing the conversation. Wrong. Shut it down. 15 minutes, your team should be able to clearly tell you what I'm going to suggest here in a minute. So we're going to move past thinking about the meeting as a status call. And we're going to start thinking about it as working towards our goals. So if you are using Scrum, you have a sprint goal. If you are using any of the other flavors of Agile, you have goals. If you aren't using any of them, you need to have goals. If you don't have goals, then how do your teams know what they're supposed to be working toward and where the finish line is? So first thing, you might have to put on the brakes, put the car in reverse, back up, and make sure that your team has goals. If you're not using something like iterations that automatically draw you to creating those goals, then make sure that you start each week with the team deciding what their goals are for the week. So you got to start there. So we're going to have a goal. Once you have a goal, then you can change the stand-ups. Because the stand-up isn't yesterday, blah, blah, blah anymore. It's what am I doing, or what am I doing with my coworkers or my colleagues to push toward that goal? So that changes the message a bit. So we're going to think about what is our goal and how are we going to push forward. And this is what I suggest you do if you're new to this or you're trying to restructure, which means you're also new to this. Start out by having someone state the goal at the beginning of the call. Start out by having someone state the goal at the beginning of the call. That means that everybody has to have access to where the goal is written down and know what it is. And it shouldn't be so complex that stating the goal takes the first 5 minutes of the 15 minutes. So we're going to state the goal every day with some enthusiasm, not droning out the goal, but we're going to state the goal to remind ourselves of what we are trying to accomplish. This week, our goal is to, or this sprint, our goal is to, or this 2 weeks, whatever time frame you pick, and state it. And don't, if you're the facilitator of the meeting, don't get in the habit of being the one to state the goal. Because if you are, guess what's going to happen? Everybody's going to tune you out after a while. So change it up and ask for a volunteer to state the goal. And if within 2 seconds you don't get someone to volunteer, then we go to what we call voluntold and call on someone to state the goal. This is probably the only time you'll ever hear me say in any of my collaboration and communication courses to call someone out, because I don't normally prescribe that method when I'm teaching you how to improve collaboration, because I don't like putting people on the spot when they're not ready. But this is one time that I am going to encourage you to just call on someone to state the goal, because everyone should be aware of the goal. So we're going to state the goal. The goal for this week is, the goal for this sprint is. And then you can go around the group, around the room, if there is a room. Right now we don't really have rooms, but you can go around the group and you can do it by volunteers, or let's say your goal has 3 bullets. So you're going to go to the first bullet and you're going to say, if you're supporting this goal, and then have them tell you what they're doing to support the goal. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, how is that different from yesterday I did this, today I did this, etc., etc.? Well, it is, because you're focusing on the goal. I don't want to hear about some meeting you went to or some conversation you had in the hallway or how many phone calls you took in or whatever it is. We're not talking about status items. We're only talking about what we're doing to move the goal towards the finish line. So that automatically changes the dynamics of the conversation. Also, because we're focusing on the goal, we're not going into this droning, especially if you're working with a technical team, they get very wound up about technical details. No, what am I doing to push the goal forward? What am I doing to push the goal forward? The next thing they can talk about is, and today, to push the goal forward, I need help from, and either they're going to name people they need help from, or they're going to say, I need help from people who have experience doing X. And then that involves everybody else. And then somebody can say, oh, okay, I'm available, call me after the meeting. If nobody pipes up and says they can help that person, take a note as the facilitator and make sure that after the meeting you follow up to make sure they get the support. Because if you don't, the next time they're not going to say they need help. They're going to be like, nobody helped me last time, so why should I bother saying it this time? And then the last thing is anything they are worried or concerned about that might prevent the team, not the person, the team, from reaching their goal. So we've moved things forward by X, Y, and Z. However, to finish this goal, we need to have, using a technical reference, a database change, and from what we understand, that person is on holidays this week. So as facilitator, manager, leader, whatever your role is, if you're the one facilitating this meeting, you're going to be taking notes of that and making sure that afterwards you follow up and say, hey, I heard you say we were concerned because of these database changes. What can I do to help? Do you have the right contact details? Do you know who to talk to? Is there someone else that can help do this? And then also have a conversation. If things keep popping up over and over again, talk about what you can do to prevent those obstacles in the future. If database changes are a constant roadblock, then maybe there needs to be a change on how those things are addressed. So be aware. You have to pay attention to what's happening in the stand-up, because that's very telling of where the team is and what they need. So just to recap, we're going to start the meeting with restating our goal, and then we're going to talk about what we need to reach that goal. At the end of the meeting, if you want, you can also ask people if there are any other concerns they have that they want to raise for the awareness of the group, for situational awareness. Those aren't going to necessarily be hashed out in the 15 minutes, because 15 minutes goes by really quickly. But again, notes that you're going to work towards the day to make sure that those frustrations or concerns don't consume the team and prevent them from reaching the goal. Now, one team that I worked with, the vice president would attend the stand-ups. He didn't have a role in the team. He would attend. And he said, well, these are really boring and I'm not getting anything out of it. He was a bit shocked when I said to him, well, you're not the one these are for, and you're not supposed to be getting anything out of it. He thought it was a status meeting. It's not. I'm going to say that one more time. I think I've said it about 4 times. One more time. It's not a status meeting. It's to help the team clearly focus on their goals and make sure they are continually moving towards those. It is not a checklist. It is not tick, tick, tick. It is not a status report for the vice president who pops in whenever he feels like it. It is solely for the benefit of the team to make sure they have everything they need to keep working towards those goals. So while I'm doing a wrap up, for those of you that are watching, if you have any questions that you want me to answer here in the last couple minutes, because I did say a stand-up was supposed to be 15 minutes, I should follow my own advice, type those in the comments and I will try to answer them. If you think of something after the meeting, you can always send us a message on the Agility for All Facebook page or LinkedIn page, and we will get you an answer to those questions. And also, if this kind of topic about how we bring teams together and communicate and collaborate is of interest to you, then please check out our website, agilityforall.com, because we have new learning programs where we are going to be focusing for 12 weeks on team collaboration. And the focus of that is, how do we collaborate from the start of the day to the end of the day, and how do we ensure that everyone is included in those discussions that needs to be included. So quick reminder, start the meeting with the goal. Back up, make sure you have a goal. Start the meeting with the goal. Make sure that that 15 minutes, no more, meeting focuses on how are we doing to move toward the goal, and make sure that you provide time for people to raise concerns if they have them. And then most importantly, make sure that any issues or items that come up are actually resolved, not pushed off to the side or ignored. If anybody has any questions after this, send us a message, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, anywhere you want to find us and reach out to us. And please check out what we're doing to evolve these topics. Also, if you have suggestions for another live, because now that I've done one, maybe I'll do a second one, please also send us comments on that as well. But I'm going to sign off now because we are just coming up on 15 minutes. And I thank you for tuning in and look forward to talking to you again.